As veterans, we struggle to fit in. Taught to never let feelings win. Lost in a world full of fear and pain. We all have hung our heads in shame. When we look up, we see hands reaching out. There is so much support about. It comes from above and others around. Please take a hand and rise from the ground. Stand up and fight for your life. Walk away from negativity. Don't give in to strife. Show up for yourself. Find your voice. Keep moving forward. You have a choice. Give compassion for the child inside. Healing pain, let hope reside. Lost you will no longer be. Then you can help set others free. Now speak up and with us share the tools that make pain easy to bear. Advocate for others to lighten their load. Use your voice and join our show. On Coffee Talk with Bryan and Marie, we heal out loud, PTSD to advocacy.
And what's going on, friends and family? Thank you guys so much for joining us on another great episode of Coffee Talk with Bryan and Marie. Good morning, Marie. How are we doing?
I am a little bit tired today, but I am.
Wake that ass up then.
I
Boom,
know.
boom,
I'm
boom.
trying.
She's just like, whoa.
Yeah. It's been a crazy week, dude. My husband got back from his trip, which was amazing. He ended up booking it across the country on his dual sport bike, which was fun for him. And then we took my mom to the airport on Wednesday. So she had been here for, 2.5 weeks, and we ended up having a really good time. And, it's been a busy week.
So you weren't alone.
So-
You definitely you still had your mom around, which that's great. I'm glad you guys had that opportunity. And I saw a lot of photos and stuff like that. So it looks like there was some great things that happened while she was here that you guys got to experience, which was so amazing. I'm just happy that you got to have that time with your mom. I know time is precious as we get older with our folks, man. So, I'm glad you got to have that moment in time with them.
Thank
That's
you.
great. So
How are
other
you
than
doing?
that, shoot, I can't complain. Life is going like Mach 10 with my daughter and her husband now, you know what I mean? So it's just, and they're gonna have a baby on their way. So it's a lot of new stuff going down with her. She's been sick as hell. So she's made the claim that she's one and done. And I said, yeah, right. She's the one that always wanted babies. I can't imagine her being one and done, but that's what she's saying, because she's in so much she's just so sick, and she's just miserable, and she just can't get out of her bed pretty much without puking everywhere, and can't hold things down. I've been to the emergency room, I think 3 times. So it's been quite the experience right off rip. But other than that, life is doing amazing. We want to break some news here. I'm sure by now most of you guys are well aware that we decided to take Coffee Talk and make it its own show. And we just felt that it was time. We see a need for this show, and we see that there's a benefit by breaking the 2 shows up, because with the algorithm world, which I can't stand, but that's just the world that we live in, with the both shows kind of, they have a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences there too, right? So with that being said, they kind of get lost in each other's algorithm world, and a lot of these stories aren't finding the right audiences. And then I saw that the growth was a lot slower this year when we kind of just went solely on Coffee Talk. There's a lot of listens, which is great, which means the retention's there. It's just the growth level of us gaining new listeners, which that means that it's not getting in front of new faces and stuff like that, which means some way or another we're getting lost in the algorithm world. And that's why we did the split. So for now, and I know Marie's not a fan of this logo, so we're not going to keep it forever. But this is our logo for now, and I'm not a big fan of it either. AI kind of did me dirty on both the live version of me as well. I'm not going to lie, with the lighting and stuff. If anybody used to play that game back in the day where you had the faces and you had to pick the faces, and if you had the matches or whatever, you would put the cards down. Damn, there's faces on them. Some of them had bald
Guess
heads,
who?
matches. Guess who? Yeah, well, I kind of looked like the dude with the glasses and just the mustache, right? And some of the lighting, and when they did the AI, that's all I could think of is I looked like that damn character on that Guess Who. You know, so I was like, all right, I don't know what the hell to go either. We'll just go the animation because you know what? Animation's animation. You know what I mean? So we're going to make it better. This is for now. We're going to ride this, season out till November, and then we'll start up the new season with the new logo. And I like our introduction song. So I think it'd be really hard to replace that one. I think that might be our staple song. And I think that's what we're going to stick with. So when you guys hear that, that familiar song, and some of you are going to start singing the dang song with us, right? Because I know Marie and I are over here just, and doing our air guitars and stuff. But we appreciate everybody, and we appreciate you guys' patience with us. And we hope that this split will make it a little bit easier for you guys to find it too, because that's the other thing. It's like every day is a Saturday, Coffee Talk with Bryan and Marie. It's just like a lot of words to say all at once. So hopefully this move will and if you guys want to go over to Every Day's a Saturday, and you guys can follow that as well, and then you'll probably more than most likely you're gonna see a lot of this with the guests on both shows. You're gonna hear them tell their more in-depth military side over here, and then you're gonna hear more of their healing part on the Coffee Talk side. So
that's why I was just gonna say, can you explain a little bit more what the difference is between the two for those who are just listening?
Yes, absolutely. So right now, Every Day's a Saturday, USMC Veteran Podcast. When I first started this show, it started off with my story of my life and then my transition of getting into the military, how I got out, and how life treated me afterwards. And then I started bringing on other guests and started doing the same thing and getting more, like I said, more of that military side, and then like the transition, but where are they at today, right? Then the segment Coffee Talk was always kind of meant to hone down after Coffee Talk came in season 3. So I'd already done a lot of interviews at this point in time. So Coffee Talk was always meant to kind of focus more on the problems within the community and what type of solutions are there out there for us to kind of offer them to get themselves out of their funk, right? So when I found Marie, her story just fit so well with what Coffee Talk kind of represented. And I thought, wow, she would be really well. And she's also a female side, which is really hard in the community to get females to be comfortable to come out and talk about their experiences, because some of them had really bad experiences and it's a very touchy thing for them to talk about. And a lot of them feel that they're not received very well within the community and such. So bringing Marie on, I felt that she could be a face for the female veterans, tell her story. She shows her vulnerability like no other. And she's a great example of being able to be resilient, tell your story, and being able to heal out loud. And that's how we came up with this whole healing out loud portion. And we want to make sure that, we focus on this mental health side, right? And I know that some people, mental health isn't something that we constantly want to focus and be in. So that's why we felt like, hey, maybe if we kind of put this show and have it more on the mental health side, and you want to hear more about how people healing and how they got through their really toughest days and times, or, you know, how was their transition in a way that they didn't have to go through those hard times. Either way, it's, you know, you'll have the best of both worlds really now with these shows. And you get, now we have two different podcasts out there that are in the veteran community right now. These are two different veteran podcasts, which once again, that helps this community get the stories out there, get what we need to get in front of everybody.
Awesome. Yeah, and
But
I'm excited. I think it'll be fun, and especially because, you know, Bryan, EDAS, every day to Saturday is kind of your baby, you know, and I think that it's going to be beautiful to kind of see, you know, it grow up even more. You know, you're in your 5th year now, and kind of see where that's going to go. And I just hope you don't get too stressed doing both. You know, I couldn't do it myself. Like, doing one is enough for me, and you're the one that's doing all the hard work. So, you know, mad props to you. I love that you are so ambitious, but I do see the work that you're putting in, and it's appreciated. And you know, I love seeing your dedication to this, and how you want to be able to get both sides of the story, because yeah, like, my life is exhausting. Okay. It's exhausting in a good way, but 99% of my life is all mental health and advocacy and stuff like that. And, you know, I'm grateful for that, but sometimes we need a break from that. And so, like, I've been doing what I can, and I'll talk about some of these organizations, you know, at a different future, but, you know, like, I've finally been able to do a little bit more of the recreational stuff, right? Get out of the mental health circle a little bit, you know, with Continue Mission, which is a program here in Utah. Went to the movies, and I've gone bowling, you know, with Dive Into Healing, you know, doing scuba diving. And, you know, there's been a couple different really amazing organizations and opportunities outside of the veteran community that I've been able to actually do more of, like, recreation and other things, because it does get exhausting sometimes solely living in the mental health space. And I am grateful that that is where my strength is, but I know a lot of other people can't handle it as much as I have in my life. Even I can't handle it all the time. So I like that we're splitting it, you know, so that people can get that break. Like, hey, come to us. We'll talk about, you know, all of our healing and whatnot. And also, oh, just go shoot the shit with Bryan. You know, it's kind of like, you know, like we are the decompressing, you know, mental health side of things. But with Bryan, it's going in the smoke shack and bullshitting and hanging out with your battle buddies, you know. So go check out his show. You know, it'll be a lot of fun. There's nothing wrong with the mental health stuff. We are continuing this. Like Bryan said, we are our own entity now, and this is going to be beautiful and fun. And also, go take a break in the smoke pit with Bryan, you know.
Yes, that's it's you're gonna get the best of both worlds, and so it'd be awesome if you could just, you know, follow both shows and you get the best of both worlds. And like I said, you're gonna end up seeing a lot of the same guest. And you know, our next guest is I'm excited to have him on as well, and he's just someone that we've gotten to know through the community of great podcasters. And you know, he's part of the Tip of Spear, which we talked about that a lot here. We've also, you know, highlighted them. Before we get going, I'm going to go ahead and bounce out. I'm going to have Marie talk about a program that helped her immensely get through her roughest days and times. And so she wants to make sure she, you know, gives them their due diligence and speak about them. And then she'll do one of her poems, and then I'll come back on. We'll introduce our next guest, and then we'll get this show on the road. All right, Marie, I'm going to bounce out.
Okay. So I just wanted to bring up, I am wearing this shirt for Strong Hope. You know, we're talking about programs and organizations, you know, in this podcast that really help with mental health. And I've talked about this program before, but I just wanted to take a minute, since I'm wearing the shirt, you know, to kind of like bring it up. Strong Hope is that month-long program that I did back in January, right out of the psych unit for myself. It was super, super, super super beneficial. Like they go into complex PTSD and they focus, I'll just read what they have on here. Patriot Support Program at Salt Lake Behavioral Health provides unparalleled treatment to service members and veterans facing a variety of behavioral health challenges. Recognizing the unique stressors and experiences associated with military service, our faculties offer comprehensive and personalized care for issues such as PTSD, depression, substance use, and complex trauma. They work closely with referring agencies to ensure seamless transition. Anyways, so Strong Hope, I was there for a month, and we did this whole overview of all the traumas I've experienced in my life, starting from childhood all the way into the military, kind of like how our childhood traumas and all the I can't even think of the word right now, but the stuck points and stuff that get in there, the schemas that get in there from childhood and how they affect us in adulthood. So the things that we believe at a very early age in our fundamental years that bring us into adulthood, and we repeat patterns of trauma and we repeat patterns of abuse, or we get into the addictions because we can't let go of these schemas and beliefs and stuff. And so in this program, they really went into that stuff and how all of these schemas affected your military service and how your military service kind of reinforced some of these beliefs. And you just really break it apart. They teach you all sorts of different programs and tools to help you to develop a new program for moving forward and getting out of those patterns of behavior. And then before you leave, they make sure that you have another program to go into, whether it's a partial hospitalization, or it's intensive outpatient, or just therapy in and of itself. It is just a phenomenal program. They really focus on emotional, mental, physical, and they add in some of that spiritual stuff as well, to be able to just help you find better tools to continue moving forward. And so anyway, Strong Hope, check it out, stronghope.com. They're here in Utah. If you're a veteran, you can get the VA to pay for you to go. It just will take a little bit of fighting. And if you're active duty, the military will pay for you to go as well. It's here in Salt Lake City. So check it out, stronghope.com. And so speaking of, kind of like healing and finding peace in your journey, and kind of trusting people who have come before you, I decided to I was inspired to write this poem this week. I have a friend of mine who is on his deathbed right now. He's got a very aggressive form of cancer that hit him really hard in the last few weeks. And he hit his 18 years of sobriety sitting in the hospital. And as I was talking to him, I just was in awe because of his dedication to continuing in a life of recovery, even on his deathbed. And I thought it was so beautiful. And I was so grateful for the people who have come before me to show that healing is possible, healing from addictions, healing from trauma, healing from anything, that it is possible and it's available for us. And I'm so grateful for the people that came before to teach me the skills to be able to be in recovery. Strong Hope with the mental health recovery, and other programs for the substance abuse, and the anonymous groups to help me with my sobriety, the spiritual groups to help me with reconnecting with my higher power, and all of the different layers of my recovery. And so I was inspired to write this poem after I talked to my friend earlier this week. And it's called Experience, Strength, and Hope. Many people came before me and showed how to find peace in pain, and how God pieced them back together when they felt insane. They helped me see what truly matters is found within the heart, and every single day we all get a brand new start. The memory of these lessons I will not take for granted. So many people have helped my shaky feet stay planted. into a new plane of existence that's full of duality, where I embrace pain and joy through spirituality. The experience of others will always be my guide, some from those still here, others on the other side. A man I know lay sick, holding strong to his sobriety, leaning into friendship instead of notoriety. There's strength found in resiliency, though not the way people think. It's in reaching out to others, no matter how far you sink. Friendships forged through hell are never truly lost, and letting go of resentments is worth any cost. I'm grateful for the ones who paved the way for me. Their experience, strength, and hope helped to set me free. Moving forward in my journey, I will share mine too, continuing the legacy to thine own self. Be true.
All right, another outstanding poem by Marie. And where can they find your book?
So you can go to sliderbabe.com. And, for those who don't know, my book is, it's called More Me Than I Used to Be, A Journey to Freedom. And it's got my poems and my photography in it and whatnot. But yeah, you can go to sliderbabe.com to get it. You can either buy it for yourself, which all the proceeds goes towards my advocacy and networking stuff when I, kind of help people to find programs and just support people in their own journeys. Or you can donate books into jails, institutions, mental health facilities, or nonprofits, or just people who could use the hope in recovery. So sliderbabe.com is where you can access that. Thank you.
Outstanding. All right, let's go ahead and get our next guest. I know he's sitting there eating probably all the crayons that I had back there, but he don't eat crayons. He's not a crayon eater, unfortunately, but that's what kind of snacks are in our back room. So, that's what you got to snack on. But go ahead, Marie.
Yeah, so so excited to have JJ here. JJ here is another veterans podcaster, and he is part of our podcast, the Veteran Podcasters Tip of the Spear, where we, get together once a month and just kind of talk about, some of the hot topics of the day. And we also share guests, and JJ's had me on his show before, and it was fantastic. His podcast is called Stand Up, Show Up, Lead. And he is also a leadership coach. So he's 18-year U.S. Army veteran turned leadership coach and founder of Victory Leadership Coaching, a mission-driven speaker and author. He wrote the book, Speak Up, Show Up, Lead, Resilience is Built, Not Born, and Why Organizations Should Develop Their Leaders. Sorry, that's 3 different books. Through his original podcast, through his popular podcast, he shares practical leadership lessons and inspiring stories of veterans who've reinvented themselves and teaches actionable leadership concepts. JJ now partners with organizations to help emerging leaders take ownership, communicate clearly, and execute effectively so their teams perform at their best. JJ, come on up. I'm excited to have you.
JJ, what's up, brother?
Hey, thank you guys for having me on here. I'm excited to get into all of the stuff we're going to talk about.
Outstanding, man. And we're excited to have you on, bro. We've gotten to kind of know you throughout time, but let's let everybody else know a little bit about you. Give us that, where you kind of grew up, what made you decide that you weren't ready to be a Marine yet. And tell us, obviously you did 18 years, man. That's a long time. Give us a little bit of, overview of your military service. And then we really want to focus on how getting out was for you, man. I mean, 18 years is a lot of time of being brainwashed and everything else that happens to us. And we're wired differently, right? So I can't imagine 18 years, man. And then we want to hear all about the podcast and what you got going on and how life is treating you today, dude. So the floor is all yours, brother. And don't mind us. We may interrupt you, interrupt ourselves, or interrupt each other. But it's It's all love.
I interrupt myself when I am talking, and I'm like, "Oh wait, no," and I'll continue on with another topic. So yeah,
Hey, I was
Yeah,
on before we went live, so I know exactly what happens over here.
yeah, we
Yeah,
have
yeah.
a lot of fun.
We should have a behind the scenes show. It would be quite interesting.
Oh man, that'd be
I think that's
horrible.
probably true. Well, again, thank you for having me on. My name is JJ Hardy. I am actually originally from the area that I'm living now, which is where I was before the military. I live in Iowa. I grew up poor, and that's part of the reason I left here. I had a lot of very interesting situations growing up. There were a lot of drugs with my parents. I got into drugs myself. Ended up getting kicked out of my house when I was 16 years old. And I lived in my truck in the middle of an Iowa winter and figured out a lot about
Damn.
resilience and also
I
feeling
didn't get
sorry
the
for
rebel
myself.
in you. I've known you, bro. I didn't get the rebel part in you. Shoot.
Well, some of it was founded. There was a lot of child abuse there. Some of it was just me not wanting to put up with stuff as a kid anymore.
Yeah.
You know how that gets sometimes, and I got a little bit more wild than most. Parents playing each other against the other, and all that sort of fun stuff just got old after a while. And at a certain point, I was living with my grandma. I bounced around from house to house, and across the street there was her neighbor was an Army recruiter, and I started hanging out with him. He didn't really talk much about the Army until one day he showed up at one of my campsites because he found out I was camping. And, I was 3 sheets to the wind. You know how that goes. And he started talking about how much different things are when you're on active duty. And I was like, well, my goodness, is that really all it takes to get the heck out of here? And he said, well, if that's something you're interested in, yeah. And so eventually I called him back and I said, hey man, I think I'm going to do that whole military thing. I'm kind of sick of the way life is around here. And I'm glad I did. Actually, the military for me was a life-changing experience. I didn't have much support or anything like that where I came from. It was always constantly being put down. And although there's a lot of yelling and all kinds of interesting stuff once you go to basic training and AIT, when you get on active duty, you meet your first family. And, you kind of look out for each other. And I learned
Trauma bond like a mug, huh?
Oh, yeah. Well, I deployed very soon after getting to my first duty assignment. And
So give us your time frame around, give everybody the chronological order here.
Chronological order. I left for the military in 2018.
Okay.
Or sorry, that's when I retired. 2000 is when I left, and I retired in 2018. I did 3 combat deployments during that time. All to Iraq, although I did go to Afghanistan a couple times. I was a transportation guy. So I did a lot of the coordination. That's not to say my first 2 deployments when I was younger, I got wrapped up in convoy commander, being gunner, and, all that fun stuff that when you're a junior enlisted guy, you just do. I mean, you're kind of looking around, waiting for somebody to point you in a direction, and you just do whatever the heck they say.
Waiting for that finger point to where are you going?
No, not the finger point. Come
or
on,
the
it's
knife hand. Yeah, there you go. I was gonna say, there you go.
You go here. You go here. If anybody doesn't know the knife hand, if you're pointing, you've got 3 fingers pointing back at you.
That's
so
why
they do the knife hand.
And whether fingers at you.
Well, and whether they know your name or not, your new name is you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, you, come here.
I think they had a little bit of a saltier taste for a name for us. So,
well, I mean, that probably came from the crayons. Just saying.
Yeah.
It's very colorful language because of that.
Oh boy.
All right.
Boy.
Well, I have plenty of that too.
Army sandwich here, huh?
Uh-huh. That's okay. That's okay. We won't hold it against you. No,
it's all right. It's all right with the Marine. It's a soup sandwich.
I'll let you.
So,
Okay, guys.
Oh, it's a soup sandwich in the Army too. But this is all fun and games. We all branches of service, especially once we get out, we just love each other because we actually understand that we go through the same experiences. So
we're not fighting, guys. All right.
No,
this is just
this is what you call banter.
Yeah.
So Yeah, the military was interesting for me. You know, when you have trauma before you go into the military, it seems like whether you realize it in the moment or not, all of those things, once you are done experiencing what the military will give you when you're in combat, once you're done with all of that, it and you're not busy anymore, which by the way, I didn't have time when I was in the military to deal with trauma or even know that it was there, to
You
be
weren't even
quite
allowed
honest
to
with you.
have it. You weren't allowed to
No,
have it at the
no.
either,
Drink
You-
water, changes
let
tops.
alone have time, but you weren't even allowed to have trauma.
Well,
That's right.
it's almost like you push pause on the childhood trauma, and
I
then you
never
get
even thought about
traumatized.
that.
And then you get traumatized in the military, and then when you become a civilian, you have all of that trauma that comes after you.
Oh man,
Dude,
you guys
you
got to
know,
read the
that's
book
why I
Struggle
love
Well.
doing these damn shows is that's exactly I never even really put it in that perspective. You know, I never really thought about it so much because and it's weird that this keeps coming up though. I keep hearing the same thing over about childhood trauma before joining and then when you get out, the perplexion of it all kind of
Yeah.
turning into
Yeah.
a hell of a soup, right?
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
you go from being a traumatized child to then being a traumatized adult,
Because
and then you throw
you're
it all
basically
together.
being raised though by the military at 18 years old. You're very fresh, and this is your introduction into the world as an adult, right? As
Yeah.
you know, for some of us, I know some people had a little bit of a later start, but you know, for instance, myself, I mean, I turned 19 in boot camp, and you know, from there on, I was pretty much raised from the Marine Corps up until 23 years old.
Yeah.
But that's when our brain is very fresh, and you know, our first reality of being adult is kind of a skewed way of looking at it as an adult, right? Because we get into some more trauma, chaos, and we came from a world of that. So some people do escape their childhood trauma, come into the military looking for security, only to find more trauma. But you have some people that are in the fucking same hole as you, going through that same trauma.
Right. Yes. Yeah, absolutely true. And that's why it's so easy to deal with it when you're there, is because everybody, has that shared experience. And then when you see how other people are worse off and some people are a little bit better than you are, it just makes you feel that everything you're feeling is normal. So, I mean, we just kind of get through it. And then when you get busier and busier and busier as you gain rank, because contrary to popular belief, the work piles and piles and piles as you get more senior and senior in rank. And then you're just dealing with more people's problems, and then you have your own problems. And then do you really have time for your family problems at home because so much is going on at work? I don't really know, but I do remember that it was all going on at the same time.
So let me ask you guys both this question, right? And I'm sorry, JJ, but this
Yeah.
is a perfect timing because this is something that I think that keeps coming up in my life, and it's one of the things is how the World War II veterans and stuff came home. When they all came home, they all got on a ship together, and they all traveled back, and they had a lot of time to kind of sit there and have that moment of talking and digressing about all the shit that they experienced with one another. Now, when I got out in 2004, we were actively still at war. There was no time for me to anything. They sent me on my fucking way. I literally came home from deployment, had a very little stint of time when I was back on base, and it was more of a checking out time frame. And then when I got out, it was just got to hit the fucking road running, and there was no counseling, there was no talking to my brothers and sisters because some of them were still deployed too at that moment in time. So we never ever and I just thought about this other day when I was on a podcast, how like I don't really ever tell my story much. You know what I mean? When I've told it on here, but sometimes when I tell it, I'm like, holy shit, it's wild the things that we've done, and we've never really bounced it off of others to have that moment in time and talk about it. I actually went and did this to AI and put in my unit and put in my time frame. And oh my gosh, I'm telling everybody right now, go do that. If you want to kind of hear about what you did in the war and what your unit was doing at the time and how instrumental it was to the war, it's really cool that you can kind of do that now. But I put that in the AI about my unit, the time frame I was in, what we did, and boy, it gave me a whole thing about what we got to do. But we just never had that time of reflection. So I don't know if that plays a part with our mental health too, is that we all just kind of got out, we all went back to our normal lives, and we're supposed to interject with all these people who don't, our friends didn't have any relation to us anymore. Like when I went back home, it was different hanging out with them. I didn't feel normal. When I would go out to the club with them, it used to be a blast. Now I'm just sitting there and it's almost like I don't even hear the music. I'm just watching people be like, and I'm just thinking the whole time I need to get out of here. It's just crazy. So I'm sorry I went long on that, but it's just something that's really being prevalent on my mind about us not really having time to reflect about our time. And it was more like, hey, thank you for your service. Bye. Here
So
at ED 214.
So I'll tell you for myself, and then JJ, you can go. So when I got back from Iraq, a lot of people
frame is when.
Oh, so 2006
There you go.
or
Okay.
sorry, 2006 is when I joined. I went to Iraq from 2009 to 2010.
Perfect.
So when I got back, I kind of my journey was a little bit different because when I was in Iraq, I've talked about this before, my hips gave out. And when I got back, they started a medical discharge. And so I got back from the deployment. I deployed with one part of the unit. I was in Charlie Med, which was the Brigade Support Battalion, right? And as soon as I got back, they transferred me over to Brigade. And so I was no longer with the people that I had started my deployment with. I wasn't with the field artillery guys that I was with during the deployment. And now I'm with Brigade. And so I'm with the higher dogs, with the higher echelon. And so I'm not with as many of the my battle buddies, and so I didn't really have a chance to do that decompression myself. And then I got a medical discharge, and I got medically discharged at a time where right before I got out, I was the medical readiness helping everybody get deployed again to Afghanistan. And so when I got out, everyone was gone that I was really close to. And so I had like a few core people, but I didn't really have that support. And so I never had that chance. I don't remember ever really decompressing from the deployment, because I went straight into, now I'm working at Brigade and then getting people ready, and I'm doing my medical discharge, and, my whole unit is dealing with their own stuff, but I'm doing the medical shit, and so I didn't have that time. And then when I got out of the military, I had one person that got out around the same time as me, and he became my roommate for a little while, and like that was good. I had one person, but there was nobody. And then when you get out of the military, I've talked about this before, they don't come in and check on you. As soon as you leave, you're done. Like that is it. Like now you are in a new unit, which is the VA. And if you're not actually a part of the VA, if you don't have your disability,
that's if you even go right off rip to it. Yeah. That's even if you go seeking it right away.
Exactly. And so like some people have that and some people don't, but like I didn't know anything. So I didn't have that support. And so the only reason why I ended up getting support was because I went to college and I was like, I got to do something. I went to college and I already had the disability. So I had that basic support. But then when I was in college, there was a veteran group at the college, which saved my ass and taught me about being a veteran. But that was kind of like my journey. So I didn't really have that time to decompress. What about you, JJ?
So, I'm interested in JJ because you were in for 18 years. Now, was it carry on with the mission, or did you guys have time to decompress?
Oh, gosh. It was weird. So the dynamic that you guys saw was a little bit different for me because I had 5 different duty stations. Right. And my first 2 duty stations is where I did my deployments. And so then the second half of my career, I was spread out with new people every couple of years. And so my first duty station, I had my first 2 deployments. It was with the 70th Movement Control Team. I was with that unit the whole time I was there. I went from...
That's your first unit you checked into, basically?
Yeah, that was my first active duty unit, was the 70th Movement Control Team. And, I raised my hand when we were back at Fort Eustis and decided to be a saw gunner. And so my very first deployment, I spent half of the deployment as a gunner for other units, convoys, 82nd. It turned into 101st there for a little while. And then the other half of the deployment, I was doing airfield operations. I was moving cargo around the airfield, loading aircraft, unloading aircraft, managing the schedule for when this cargo would leave and come back. And that kind of continued we were there for 10 months. And the people that I was on my convoys with, they were not the same people that were in my unit. It was me being a gunner was a tasking, and they were losing a lot of people in both of those units, and so they didn't have enough people that were qualified on crew serve weapons just to pick up, throw in a gun truck and send on their way. So that was a very interesting experience. I had to go talk to people in my unit who spent the rest of their time just moving cargo around the yard and loading aircraft and doing all that stuff. And they just looked at me like, okay, I understand you did that stuff, but come on, dude, it's time to get back to work.
Carry on.
And
Right.
so I did, I did that. And my second deployment was sort of similar. I spent most of my deployment on the FOB. We were near Baghdad. It was in that whole series of installations that were around Baghdad. I'm sure if you guys have been there, you know what I'm talking about. And
we were in Babylon, Iraq, when
Babylon.
Babylon, yeah.
That's a very historically significant place, and
yes.
I don't know if you got to see any of that when you were there.
Of course not, but when I was there, was just our supply point where it ended, basically.
Okay.
So, but yes, I know how historical it was afterwards, especially. I was
right. Right. So for my second deployment, I did for about 6 weeks. I was, because I was an NCO already. I was an assistant convoy commander, and I did that for that whole 6 weeks. Otherwise, I was on the FOB, and I was processing cargo in and out of our different yards. I was, we had the tasking of manning the ECPs, the entry control points for both spots on the base, and keeping track of the cargo when it was out in theater and all that other fun stuff. So that was very interesting. It was a very computer based deployment, but we also worked right next door to the sheriff's office. And if you know what the sheriff is, when you're downrange, it is not the police. The sheriff is they're basically they're not installation support, but they are area support, where you call if you can't get a hold of people at your unit, or your guys are in serious trouble and you need additional assets that may not belong to your unit, you call sheriff and they get you what you need. And they're tracking all of the battlefield things that are going on. And so hearing on the radio, that was an interesting time, because I remember my first deployment, it was pretty nasty, and so that was a lot of fun. But then my third deployment, it was very easy. I didn't go anywhere. I was a senior E6, and my 3 deployments were 04 to 05, 6, 7, and 9, 10. And so I spent a total of 35 months downrange.
Did I know that we deployed at the same time? Where were you at?
Which year? In 06?
9 to 10.
9 to 10. I was actually in Talil. So I was with the 12th Combat Aviation Brigade, and our job was to take care of all of the local bases that kind of surrounded. Yeah, they were in a Basra and a couple of other ones. If you know those places, that we were kind of in charge of that.
I was in Bakuba, FOB Warhorse at that time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of movement in and out of there during that time. We did a lot of flights over to there. So we had Apaches, we had all the helicopters, Black Hawks, we had Chinooks, and we did medical support as well. So I'm sure that if you were anywhere near there, you probably called on our aviation brigade for medevac support at one time or another, or assistance with moving cargo.
Yeah, I was evac, and what we ended up doing was we would take people to the helipad, and I'm guessing you guys were the ones that were picking them up. So
yes,
that's awesome. Yeah,
I was not involved with that. I was support operations. I worked in the transportation sector. That was my first higher than just the unit level command that I was in. So I was that battalion there, and it was a lot of fun. It was a learning experience. I did more coordination than I did at a movement control team because I was at battalion level. Before I left that duty assignment, I was in brigade, and then I went on a couple duty stations later to become a mobility warrant officer. And so the rest of my time was served out in staff non-deployment. My final duty assignment was actually in Alaska, and to kind of finish off that story of how I transitioned, and also to answer your question, Brian, it was interesting. Shortly after we got there, we found out we were on orders to potentially deploy, and I was ready for it. Whatever. My job was to get people there and get them back, and then manage the AOR downrange with the SPO. But when we were going through SRP, they started looking at my medical jacket. Well, I hadn't deployed in a long time, and they're like, this guy's medical readiness even though he's all good to go right now, he may not be good to deploy. We need to reevaluate this guy. And it was determined within a couple of months after I got there to that duty assignment that I was non-deployable. Well, I went from being the unit superstar with doing everything for him over there after I took over as the brigade mobility officer to, well, even when you're a senior guy, let's just say you can still be treated like a nothing. I was considered an obsolete piece of equipment, and they treated me as such.
Sick, lame, and lazy is what they would category people as.
Yeah, or they call them excuse my language, a shit bag. That was one of the big things that they like to call us.
Well, and with an entire career full of accolades and being the go-to guy at most of my duty assignments, or at least that's the way they made me feel, from going from all of that to being a nothing, I immediately had to start going through therapy because I was all kinds of confused. And that's
take a huge shot to your ego, I imagine, your mental health, everything.
Oh, gosh, it was terrible. So it's not just the young guys that go through their struggles during transition. As a matter of fact, people that spend more time in service, as soon as they find out that that's done, my goodness, you can recover from working out and everything else in your 20s. But when you're in your late 30s, early 40s, nothing recovers the same as it used to. Let's just put it that way. And when you're used to doing one thing for so long, I mean, my goodness, think about if you worked for Disney for 35 or 40 years or something like that, and then all of a sudden they said, we got to let you go. You wouldn't know anything else but Disney. I didn't know at almost 18 years, I didn't know anything else but the military. So when I transferred out and I already felt like the biggest dirtbag in the entire world, I believed that.
All right, before you get in this, before we kind of get into this next phase, we'll go ahead and do our veteran showcase real quick. Did you want to say something real quick, Maria?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I love that you are sharing this. Like a lot of the times when we have people on here, there's a lot of the lower enlisted or whatnot, and it's nice when we have officers that come on here because there's a lot of the officers that get out and they're like, oh, we're great, we have this money, we've retired, we had a lot of support. We've had some people like that, and that's awesome. They have their own struggles, their own and whatnot. But we've had a couple officers come on here and just say, yeah, like life was shit when we got out. And I love that you're opening up about that. And I don't love that your life was shit, but I love that you're opening up. Like we had a guy a few weeks ago.
The shittier the better.
Yeah, but he's the founder of the Price of Freedom Foundation, now. But when he got out, he was homeless. Like he had a lot of struggles, and he was a major when he got out. And so it's good when we have the other people come on, especially with the higher rank, because sometimes the lower enlisted feel like we're isolated and we're just the shit of everything. And so it's shitty that it happens all the way up to the ranks, but it's good that you're sharing your story, because that way they can see that they're not alone. And so I appreciate you like being honest and open about about this. You're like, yeah, I went to superstar to piece of shit. Like, or at least that was my feeling. And that was the way people treated me. I wasn't a piece of shit, but that was the feeling. And so I love that you are sharing that. So thank you for being willing to be raw. And I'm excited to kind of hear, like how that transition happened into civilian life and how you were able to overcome that mentality. And we'll get there in just a minute. So go ahead, Bryan.
All right, so we're going to be doing our veteran showcase like we normally do. This is going to be Craig Morgan, who is really made his way up into being a headliner in the music world. But just to give you guys a little bit of a background about Craig Morgan, he served over 17 years in the U.S. Army and Army Reserves, including active duty with the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions, and participated in the 1989 U.S. invasion of Panama. So I do want to say that, after a 13-year break, Morgan re-enlisted in the Army Reserve on July 29th, 2023. During a performance at the Grand Ole Opry. He currently serves with the 313th Army Band and Redstone Arsenal, Alabama, contributing as an associate bandmaster and participating in programs such as Prevention Music Initiative, which uses music to support soldiers' mental health and suicide prevention. I didn't even know that part. That's super cool. I did hear that he re-enlisted and just got recently promoted, I think, too, right?
And he's a fellow warrant officer, which I'm the one and only in this room, but I'm glad we have a second one getting ready to go with a song.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't even know that it just happened to be, he's the luck of the draw. So perfect in suiting for this show. All right, so here's some Craig Morgan. We're going to go ahead and disappear and play this song. Let me get it. Sorry, guys. I got too many dang freaking windows going on this morning. All right, here we go.
Looking up at a diamond sky, catching all the tears from my little boy's eyes, saying Daddy's gotta go away. Son, I hope you understand someday. Suiting up, answering the call, standing on the front lines, fighting for us all. But every step along the way, I'll be picturing your sweet face. And every night, when you're staring out at the man in the moon, know that I'll be out here looking too. And I'm always here with you, 'cause under this blanket of stars, nothing can keep us apart. Whenever you're standing in the dark, I'll always be here inside your heart. I can be the calm in the storm, be the sunlight to keep you warm. No matter where you are, I'm never ever too far. Under this blanket of stars. The desert's only in this foreign land. It feels like a million years have passed, losing brothers all along the way. A trail of tears, scars, and blood stains. Crash of bullets and the swarming sands. My soul is weary, I can barely stand, but I look up at the Milky Way, and I know that I will be okay. 'Cause every night when I'm staring out at the man in the moon, son, I know you're out there looking too. It's like I'm right there next to you. Under this blanket of stars, nothing can keep us apart. Whenever I'm standing in the dark, you'll always be here inside my heart. You can be the calm in the storm, Be the sunlight to keep me warm. 'Cause no matter where you are, you're never ever too far. Under this blanket of stars. I'm here taking my final breath, seeing visions of a life that I'll never have. Tears falling from my eyes. Wish I could hold you one last time. When you hear that 21 gun salute and they cover me in the red, white, and blue, know it's underneath those stripes and stars will always be in your heart. 'Cause under that blanket of stars, nothing can keep us apart. Whenever you're scared and in the dark, I'll always be here inside your heart. I can be the calm in the storm, be the sunlight to keep you warm. 'Cause no matter where you are, I'm never ever too far. Under this blanket of stars. Under this blanket of stars.
Whew, that was a amazing song, and I'll tell you what, that one kind of hit the feelings for me. It's one thing that I really appreciate is these musicians that take and put their experiences into a song that is relatable to a community that some people could never understand.
Yeah.
Right. So that song is so relatable to a small community of people, but he's just a rising star, and it probably is getting into a lot of people's, into their head, and they're getting to hear some of the experiences. And I think that's just a beautiful song. My God, it's one of his newer songs, but Craig Morgan, but just by chance you happen to listen to this, man, I hope you keep doing what you're doing out there. And I want to say thank you for our brothers and sisters out there. Thank you for being a voice for all of us and putting it out there for others to hear. Thank you so much.
Likewise.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, whoa. I don't know if it's me. Sorry. Okay, there we go. There was a weird echo. Sorry about that, guys. I just wanted to say that song was incredible, and I really liked that last little bit where they showed the flag on the casket, and that was incredible. I shared this, I think, last time we recorded, but a couple weeks ago was my dad's 1-year anniversary of dying, and they gave him a flag. He was a veteran. He was a Navy veteran. And I talked about this before, and I just want to bring it up again. There's a local nonprofit called For the Fallen. And on 4th of July, they came to my sister-in-law's house and presented my mom with a case for my dad's flag. And it was really beautiful. And it's one of those that it's UV protected, it's bug protected, it's weather protected, moisture protected. And it had a little plaque with my dad's information on it. And it was so beautiful. So, anyways, if you're local here in Utah and you have a flag, this program will offer you a case for it. And so I just thought that, anyways, it was just kind of perfect, that song. And that was just a beautiful song.
Yeah, it was.
So anyways, thanks.
Yeah, definitely. I wasn't expecting to be hitting the feelings. That was a great song.
Yeah, I like I resonated with the beginning parts. It made me kind of space off for a few minutes because I remembered my wife and other family members at different points in my career dropping me off at the airport after I came home for R&R and leaving, and then having to come back after my second deployment. I came back home, and I took care of her for the first 6 months with my wife, and she didn't even recognize who I was. And, just the things that you deal with when you're in that sort of a career that you wouldn't necessarily always deal with in any other career that you can experience out there. And I started spacing off because that's where my mind went when he started talking about, when we leave and, how it's emotional. And then when we come back, and yeah, that was an emotional song.
Well, that's what's so wonderful about, creativity, and, there's that whole idea of healing out loud, right? Like using your voice, and especially in music, and oh, sorry, I'm just like, no, I'm not sorry for being emotional. Okay. But that idea of being able to speak somebody else's story, not just yours. When you are healing out loud and you're sharing your story, you're giving a voice to so many people who might not know how to word things, and so or even know that they need to. And so that is the beauty of music and poetry and podcasting and all of this stuff. It's you're putting things out there, which is helping people that you have no idea. You have no idea how much it helps for people to feel seen and feel identified, and it brings up those emotions. And so I love, Bryan, that you are adding this piece into our show of letting other people share their story with music. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, I love being able to showcase our brothers and sisters, because there's so many talents out there. I mean, it's unreal, from authors to singers to actors to you name it. We have it. There's just amazing artists out there. I mean, I could think of just about everything that veterans out there are doing, and we got to show people that we are not just badasses on the battlefield, but we are badasses off the battlefield just as well. JJ, you brought up something that I think is huge that we kind of didn't really get to talk much about, and that's being married while you're in. And I don't think people understand that this isn't your typical 9-to-5 job, right? And you're actually your number one commitment is to the United States Army. Your secondary commitment is your wife and kids. And in the normal world, that isn't how the pecking order goes, but that's how the Army or the United States government expects you as a human to react, right?
Yeah.
I think that's something that I like to talk about. This is a big part of the mental health aspect, especially being married during this. And you guys had kids. Did you guys have kids at this point in time? And kids, that is another mental psych that a lot of people don't understand, right? That when you go and leave, you're going into a foreign land. Your kids, your wife, being that they're so little, they have zero understanding why daddy's leaving and where daddy's going, and daddy could possibly not come home. Wife has to sit there and take on all the responsibilities that daddy was here doing.
I had some.
What's that? It removed from the situation for a while, so when he comes back home, he's a stranger in the home, and now he has to play a parent role with the parent who's been parenting the whole time. And now dad's like, and there's shit that mom might kind of like be a little bit more
kinda.
I had a spouse explain that, I didn't sign up to be a single mom, but that's what happened.
Yeah.
And so just basically what you were saying, Bryan, I just wanted to throw that in there. I just thought it was the most potent way to explain it. I didn't sign up to be a single mom, but I was.
Yeah. I think the hardest part was me leaving for long periods of time. And then, leaving is really, really hard anyway, but then coming back, and then
because you have to miss birthdays and anniversaries and all that stuff.
Yes. Yeah, you do. But you talked about the reintegration process. Well,
because wives could have resentment too, right? A little bit built up of resentment from you leaving, and you can't help it, but you're not there doing the duties, and she's over there, fucking motherfucking JJ,
Yeah, she did. Well, and then the hypervigilance aspect of somebody who's lived a very fast-paced lifestyle, been in combat,
Yes.
been doing a bunch of other things where you're constantly having to worry about whether that next mortar is going to be lobbed into your AO, or if you're going to have to haul another person off of the airfield because they just got shot in combat, and all kinds of other stuff. You know, there's a lot of stuff that when you come back from all of that, you can't just shut off. And when you have little ones running around the house, that's extremely difficult. I went through, and I was never really a loud person before the military, but as you start gaining rank and you start doing things that require
that 0 to 60 comes fast.
Oh, it comes fast. And
yeah,
you know, my wife has had to be an angel for the entire time I was serving and being married to her with kids, because she had to just put up with all of it. I mean, she didn't necessarily always put up with it without
she had to
saying
deal with a
anything
different
about
you,
it.
right? She had you
Yeah.
pre-deployment, and then she has you after deployment. She knows you before, and now she's
Yeah.
seeing you after, and now she probably is like, this isn't the same guy I married.
Who is this person? Who's
Right.
this person who gets upset because things are left on the floor and he steps on it? Who's this guy that when our daughter almost gets hurt, you know, he sprints and pushes everybody else out of the way, and then starts getting really, really upset over something that could just be a simple situation to solve. And, you know, that kind of hypervigilance, we don't necessarily understand that it's even coming on until sometimes we're already in it or over with it. And I still have that happen.
It still
to me today.
happens
It's
to me
not as
today,
bad.
bro.
Yeah.
I
me too.
literally said something to my wife, and as I'm saying, I shouldn't be saying this, but I'm saying it anyways, as I'm like telling my don't say this to your wife, but you know, and I'm just, and then I'm like, what the fuck? I mean,
that verbal diarrhea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Tourette's.
that happens. Yes.
I got a little bit of Tourette's or something, dude.
Son of a bitch.
So, so I have to ask, as you're doing this reintegration, did you guys utilize any sort of couples therapy or anything like that to kind of help you guys learn how to relate together again?
Or is your wife just a saint, bro? I mean,
Yeah.
just, you know,
Well, of
Where's your
course,
wife a saint?
that is what I feel. Especially even after being out for almost a decade, I still feel like our kids wouldn't be the way they are, and my career wouldn't have been, even though it was cut short, as successful as it was, unless I would have had her. I mean, it's just, yes, but that I tried very, very hard throughout my career to treat her like the angel I know she was. You know, they had marriage retreats, they had different things that we could do as a couple, and of course, we tried very, very hard a lot of times to find babysitters. But you know, when you're a couple, that doesn't always work, especially when you're going from base to base to base. But when we could find one, we did that too. But those marriage retreats,
how many kids you guys have?
we have two,
Okay.
and they are now 19 and 16.
Can
Oh,
you
shit.
talk a little bit about we really haven't had anybody talk about this, but you said they had marriage retreats. Is that through the military? Was that something that the military? Okay, can you talk about that? Because not a lot of people know about the resources that are available for the family.
Yeah. So my biggest recommendation for somebody that wants to find out more about it, and I'll tell you what it is in just a second, is you go talk to your local chaplain. Because the chaplain, they're the ones on the military.
People do not utilize the chaplain enough.
No, the chaplain is a resource, especially if you're a spiritual person. But even if you're not, they are just trained to listen.
The most kind-hearted
there for
fucking
you.
person you'll ever come across, man. Navy chaplains I've ever met with, just they are saints.
Yeah. Well, and you know, a lot of times they didn't start their career off you know, in the divinity space. So a lot of the chaplains that I've met, they were former combat arms or former logisticians or whatever. And so they'll still cut it up with you like the best of them, but they're just a really good listening ear. Now, these retreats, oftentimes what happens, and it doesn't matter whether you're Oconus or Conus, which Oconus is outside of the continental United States, Conus is inside of the United States, doesn't matter. They do it at almost every installation where they put on these marriage retreats. And basically it's whether it's a week or a weekend, they set up trips at popular destinations where you go and you learn about how to be a healthy couple. They teach classes on this stuff. And then It's almost like going to, have you ever been talked into going on one of those vacations that it's a timeshare and you learn all about the timeshare, but then you get to go enjoy it after the classes are done?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that I equate the marriage retreat to that. So you learn about how to be a healthy couple in the morning, and then in the afternoon, you get to go enjoy each other. And you can either pick the kids up from daycare that they provide on site or not, which we opted not.
So now let me ask you, does the program focus on the marriage in particular, or do they educate a little bit about, so like the spouse being married to a military guy and kind of, educating the spouses a little bit on what they may experience in, being married to, is it more of that, or is like, what's the dynamic of it?
There's education on PTSD. There's marriage on how to reintegrate. The military puts a lot of money and time into teaching people how to reintegrate. I mean, after the deployment, you go through reintegration training. And I don't know if you were married when you were in, either of you, but when you get back from deployment, they separate the married people from the unmarried people, and they put them through a completely separate grouping of classes than what the unmarried people get to experiment. And I remember, so this is like the best way to explain it. And it also shows how men and women are different. I remember every deployment I would go on, when we were done, they would put up the same slide, and it would always bring up the most conversation. It would have a box, and it said, okay, this box is a male and how a male thinks. And it has one button in the middle. And then it brought up another box. This is a woman and how a woman thinks. And that box is so littered with buttons, it's not even crazy. So when you
does that sound right, Marie? Accurate?
Yes, very much so. Very much so. That the explanation that I saw that was like the best is men have one box in their brain. Okay. And what they do is they go into the box, they pull something out, and they're like, oh, hey, okay, I'm going to put it back. Oh, I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to do it. But women have about 50 billion boxes, and they're all open, and you're constantly grabbing from each one of those boxes. And so, yeah, so that
and then
makes
they
sense.
say they have ADHD. I think it's just a woman thing,
It is.
I'm surprised that men with long marriages don't end up cross-eyed by the time they're 50 or 60.
Oh, it's true. It's true. Yeah.
Yes.
JJ's wife doesn't watch this show.
If she heard it, she would just roll her eyes and keep moving. It's okay. She's used to my BS by now. But no, I mean so the marriage dynamic in the military, I mean, yes, Marie, you said it best. You end up a single parent many times, whether it's going to a week of training, whether it's deploying for 15 months, which I did one of those, whether it's, doing 90 days where you leave a planning conference for a week, it doesn't matter.
We need to have your wife on here and get her perspective.
Oh Lord.
I was just thinking the same thing.
There might be some name calling here. I don't really know.
It's okay. It's okay.
God, we'll have my wife on here, bro.
We'll push you under the bus that she's going to roll over, and it'll be fine.
I live under that bus.
We want to hear the
but
beep,
yeah, ask her
the
to
backing
come on.
up too. Not only getting run over, but the reversing.
Well, marriage is just a fun thing. I mean, it's hard.
It's part of the journey.
Great. It's, it's not taken nearly as seriously, I think, these days as it should be. And people give up way too early. And they miss what struggle and coming together can really look like. And I think when you're on active duty and you have a spouse, that struggle comes early and often, and you either learn to grow together, or, as we all know, because we served on active duty, there are more divorces than you can possibly think. It just happens every day. You hear about somebody getting divorced when you're on active duty. It's just not a lifestyle that everybody
can handle,
can,
unfortunately, right?
So here's a question. You're still with your same wife from the beginning, right?
I found her right after my first deployment. We had a mutual friend, and
And
I
she's
knocked her up when we got married.
but you're still with her
Shotgun.
today, right?
Oh,
So you're still with her today, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We just had
So
our 20-year anniversary in March.
okay,
congrats,
so
man.
this is
Damn,
the
shit.
perfect
Good
opportunity
for
for me
you.
to ask. One of my favorite things that I like to ask couples that have been together for a long time, okay, is what is your advice to a newly married couple? And I ask this because I'm only 2 years into my marriage, right? And I love to hear the different pieces of advice. So as somebody who is, who has been together for so long, for 20 years, what's kind of some of the things that have helped you guys make it to where you're at today, especially as somebody who is a veteran and a non-veteran together. What advice would you give to help you guys help other people to get to where you're at today?
Yeah, think about that young 20-year-old, that struggled a lot through your first, there's a lot of struggles at the beginning, right? So
Yes.
Yeah, or just a newly married person, because I'm
that in
38.
general. Yeah, they don't
I'm
have to be
38
young.
as a 2 years into it. So yeah.
Well,
Embedding lives.
I would say that, I am not a perfect husband. She is a saint, but she is not a perfect wife. And it takes a lot of work to make the marriage work. If you are getting married because you found that person that made every single, goosebump on your arm make you feel good and blah, 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 you want to go and pet puppies and unicorns and do all of that stuff and just automatically assume that it's going to last forever, it does not. And the love will always be there. But if you assume that that person will always make your life easier, just know that it takes work for both of you to make that life the way that you guys want that life to look. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to be messy, and then it's going to be great. It's going to be terrible, and then it's going to get a little bit better. And then sometimes it'll just be a complete shit show. It just like I'm just saying it is. It's
No,
life.
man, I'm laughing because you couldn't be more accurate. Shit.
The advice to a newly married person, I think, would be the same that I would tell somebody who is, having dark thoughts. If you don't fight your way through it, you're not going to experience what it looks like when the hard parts are over. And if you push through and you make it to the other end and that person is there with you, you're going to be better together and stronger together. And by the way, being alone when you're going through hard stuff, it does help to have somebody else there that understands and has been through a lot of the shit with you. So don't give up when it's hard. Maybe if you have 15, 20, 30 years of hard and annoying and terrible, then maybe you want to consider some stuff, or maybe even 10 years. But, for the most part, it's like riding a roller coaster. There are ups and downs, and it's a struggle bus when you're going up, but when you're going down, it's a little bit easier, but then you got to go back up again. And sometimes you're flatlining and it's just really, really hard. And it's easy at the same time. I don't know. I don't really know how to say it. Marriage is great and it sucks. But if you want to be married, just don't watch Disney movies and think that's what life is about.
No, it's work. It is work. And I like that. Marriage sucks and it's great.
Yes.
But I like what you said too. I definitely like what you said though, bro. You're never gonna know the good until you get out of the bad, really, or something to that effect. Because that could be more closer to the truth, bro. There's been so many times where I was like, I felt like it was all over for me, where I just felt like I was in such a fucking deep hole. I wasn't gonna be able to get myself out of it. Or there's so many times I could have given up on myself or situations, and then now don't have the opportunity to reflect back on it and say, wow, come so far and things like that. It's hard because when you're living through something at the moment, it seems like you're stuck where it's forever. I remember being deployed. Every day felt like a Groundhog Day. Like, when the fuck am I getting out of here? You know what I mean? Like, or, you know, and you kind of start getting numb after a while where everything is, you feel like almost a zombie. And I feel like that's just how life goes in general. Everybody just starts kind of walking around. You know, and I'm watching my son-in-law, who's just fresh out of the Marine Corps. I'm just watching him, you know, and I see stuff that he's not seeing right now, and it's hard. And you could lead a horse to the water, but you can't make the horse drink the water, so to speak. But it's like, I feel like later on, I'll be like, dude, I was sitting there like kind of whispering in your ear the whole time, bro, because you're gonna smack yourself and be like, what the fuck? Because it happens to every single one of us, man. And I think it's weird how we all kind of go through it in our 20s, where we walk out and we just kind of keep going with that same mentality that we were trained with. But then you start to learn that training isn't really viable for the culture or the situations that you're going to be enduring now, right?
Yeah. What helps you in combat does not help you at home.
You don't have the tools. You have the tools that were supplied to you in there that don't apply to you when you're over here trying to deal with some, you know, and that's the other thing, man. You get into a world of finances, you got house responsibilities, you throw kids in the mix of it. Oh my God, that just, you know, complicates it worse, because here's two different parenting styles and things that you just keep meshing. But, you know, I think a lot of it, dude, is you got to be able to give and take in a relationship. You got to be able to be you got to be able to be a team, right?
Yeah,
and you got to be able to work together. And I tell my wife in the world, we have enough fucking static on the outside of this world that we're fighting against. We do not need to fight against each other.
Right.
You know, at the end of the day, we need to be a nucleus that is unbreakable.
Yeah.
Brian, I
Especially
think
when the kids leave the house.
Brian, I think you worded it really good, and you said something about, you know, I can't remember how you worded it, but something about the tools that you had in are not the same that you need when you get out. And like the vision that came to my mind is, you can hammer a screw, right? But you're going to do a shit ton of damage to that wall if you do that. So you have to learn how to use a screwdriver to do the minimum amount of damage, you know, and to make sure it's secured. Because if you hammer a screw, that thing will just go in and out.
But are they the proper tools?
Exactly. And so like from everything that you guys are talking about, it's that idea of building the new tools and stuff like that. And so I love that. So we've talked a lot about the family aspect, JJ. You know, what was that actual transition like, besides, you know, with the family, right? What was it like when you actually got out of the military finally, completely? How did like, did you land on your ass? Was there support systems available? Did you have your disability? You know, how did all of that stuff actually get you when you transitioned back into the civilian life, not just from the deployment, but completely into civilian life?
It was a little bit messy. So I landed, technically, if you want to look at it from an outsider's perspective, I landed on my feet. We had the ability to go over to my wife's parents' house. Her father was sick, and he had diabetes and he had dementia, and my wife's mother was still working, and so she asked for our help to come over there for a little while to help while she was working on getting to the point where she would be retired, which was very soon. And so we did that. After about a year of, 6 months to a year of doing just that, I got bored. And during that time, although he was a vet as well, he was a retired lieutenant colonel, and we had some stories that he still remembered. I started to go to a very, very dark place very fast. It was a mission to take care of him, but I wasn't part of a team anymore. I wasn't doing what I loved. I wasn't using all of the training that I had. As a logistician, your life is very, very fast paced. So I started gardening.
A lot of moving gear.
Yes. So I started gardening. I started doing a lot of stuff, but I was in a very dark place for a while. And so I'm like, you know what? I know that you need help taking care of Bob, which is what his name was, but I think I need to look for work. And I have a feeling I was probably in everybody's business, because my wife's first response to that was, yes, you do. Um, so I did. It took, and actually that part made it even worse, because it took a long time. I had a certain income threshold that I wanted to hit if I was going to go out and work. And yes, by the way, I did have 100% disability once I got out. So having that definitely did help.
You had a little cushion there, at least in terms
Yes.
of finances, where it wasn't like, holy shit, I have nothing.
No, but
Right.
But
it's not like you're rich either. That's for sure.
Oh no, definitely not. Especially not back then. The inflation has hit every year, and the amount I'm getting now is significantly more than what I was getting almost a decade ago. But it's just a matter of, I just didn't have a purpose anymore. And I think a lot of people that serve for a long time, or has been part of that team environment on deployment and in garrison, where they were always working with somebody, it's really difficult to go to a job that doesn't mean anything. And so even after I did get a job, it was just hard. But to be honest with you, what pushed me into changing my mindset was right before I got hired into that next position. I came back to Iowa, because we were living in Virginia at the time. I came back to Iowa, and my brother passed. And at the time,
older or younger brother?
He was younger. At the time, I was 38. Gosh. And he was 35. And, it was kind of an eye opener for me. And, I was just there visiting. So I was trying to mourn with the rest of them and all of that. But then the moment I went to talk to my mom about, what are you going to do with him after he gets out of the hospital? How are you going to handle all of this? It seemed like her husband, my other brother, everyone just kind of shut down. And so I felt like I needed to take action and help out. And that was not that it's very difficult to coordinate, a service and all that sort of stuff. That wasn't it at all. But I realized that how far I'd actually come. And the fact that my brother never left Iowa. He lived here his entire life. And I had been all over the world, and I had been in multiple combat scenarios and been in a lot of very sketchy situations, and I'm still here. I don't know what you guys' take on religion specifically is, but I felt like God was telling me something in that moment. And that's that I still have work to do here. And so I shut up all the voices in my head, and I started truly taking ownership of my life and looking at, before I even knew what it was. And I've been studying this concept for the past few years, but post-traumatic growth. So all my trauma was there. I still had a lot of things that made me feel like I was less, but I was starting to see how everything in my life was happening for me and giving me an opportunity to grow, rather than how terrible everything was, and how the military I went from talking about how the military kicked me out to I had the opportunity to leave the military and do other things. And when you start changing the narrative and all that stuff, it makes a huge difference in the way that you approach everything. And that's kind of how my transition went. But it was dark there for a while. Migraines all the time, which I still kind of have, but I've learned how to deal with that. And so now everything that I do is it's what's the solution, instead of, letting it get me down.
Here's the problem, and just live in the problem. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that's
beautiful.
That's where a lot of people struggle, right? Is they don't have the tools to get out of it, so they're stuck in a spot for a minute. And and I think that's why it's a beautiful thing for us all to talk about what we're going through, right? Because now we're revealing some of our toolboxes.
Yeah.
And now other people can start to see, like, hey, I've seen that tool before, or I heard about that tool before, and And now you never know when someone could be, pulling back and saying, you know what, I need to go look back and see how that person utilized their tool. I could use this tool during this time. It's kind of related to what Marie said is we all have our toolboxes, but do you have the right equipment? You can't, you can use a hammer on a screw, like she said, but the damage is going to be, you're not going to have a nice, clean, output of it.
Might break the screw.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like, I love that you're sharing this, and it's that good example of, hey, having a hard time trying to figure out where you belong and what your new purpose is, and then you finding your new purpose. And what one thing, the way that I've learned how to explain it is my story didn't change. I became a different storyteller. And so that's the thing. When you change your perspective, your story is still the same. You got out of the military and you had a hard time, but your perspective goes different, and you become that new storyteller, which helps you to find peace. And I know for the last little section of what we have going on today, I would love to hear kind of how you took that mentality and have built what you're doing today, because there is some amazing things that you were working on between leadership and doing your podcasts and doing your books. And stuff like that. And so I want to know, kind of you were able to get out of that mentality and shape this post-traumatic growth. And what does that look like for you today?
So everything that I do is rooted in ownership and accountability. And, I think that the biggest problem that made me realize what I need to do was when I was working at my last company. And it was the same theme at all three companies I worked at before I started my own business. But there was no support for these new managers that would get hired because they were really, really good workers. And so I started wanting to solve that problem. But, the problem with these people getting promoted is that they would always get a bunch of blame thrown at them. You were such a hard worker until I promoted you to a manager, and now you're horrible. Well, that's not true. And so these people were not owning the fact that they offered these people a management position without preparing them for that new job, because they're just not the same. Driving a truck, you can say all kinds of dumb stuff to yourself all day long, but as long as you're backing those trailers into the bays and then parking them out in the lot or driving them down the road or whatever the case may be, you don't have that much responsibility. You have the responsibility of not breaking your equipment, but you don't have the responsibility of making sure everybody else is properly moving their equipment and, making sure that they have the kind of culture that's required to enjoy the place that you work and, understand when things have to shift and all the things that a manager has to do. Instead, these people were just blaming these people for being bad managers. And that's bad practice.
But they weren't being trained on how to be the leader. Kind of like when you go from military, you have to kind of train to be a veteran, and you have to utilize different tools. And it sounds like you kind of were seeing that in the civilian sector as well. Like these people are moving on to a new section in their job, but they're not being adequately given their tools.
Well, and actually it's funny you mentioned the military. So the idea that I kept on coming up with was rooted in, I don't know what it's called in the Marine Corps, but it went from PLDC, Primary Leadership Development Course, to Warrior Leader Course while I was in. And I think it's called something else now. I don't know what.
Yeah, ours is NCO. We NCO course. Once you become NCO, you go, and then there's staff NCO course.
Okay. So, I mean, there's training at every level. And, I was just thinking to myself, if I could come up with a program for junior leaders and I could come up with a program for senior leaders, I think I could help solve this problem and make it a coaching program so that they learn the information and whatever. But, I wanted to solve that. And so instead of it being something that was hard, I had a mission again. And by the way, it was very easy for me to adapt to the idea that I can be super busy and drive myself crazy trying to make something happen than it was for me to work for a company that had me sitting in a vehicle all the time doing safety inspections. That was, yeah, when I left that, I think it was probably the best thing I possibly could have done. It didn't really matter what I did next. But the ideas of ownership and accountability, all of my programs are rooted in that, because if you stop making excuses for yourself and you own your outcomes and what you did right and what you did wrong to get there, and you don't blame, you don't make excuses, then what's the likelihood that you're going to be more successful in anything that you do? 110%. So that's kind of what it's all based in. And then I have my voices framework, but that's pretty much why I do what I do. And I'm super passionate about it, because I think that if people are prepared for life, they'll be more successful in life. And being a manager, just taking a new job, should not be treated any differently.
So tell us a little bit about your leadership trainings and what you actually provide, and also how people can contact you if they're interested in it.
So it's a group program. And so if you're going to train, you would have to purchase either my first time leaders course or my warrior leadership course. And the way they're done is I have pre-recorded videos, and I meet with you the first time. I explain the platform that you're using, which I use Go High Level, but there is an LMS in there that people can use to watch the content, and I can see how far they've come. You watch what I assign you every week, and then we come together once a week to talk about how you can implement. What's the word I'm trying to say? Implement. Thank you. I got my mix all talked up. But how you can implement these principles into your day to day. And it's the very basic stuff for the first time leaders course, and the warrior leadership program that I have. It's more designed for a manager who has managers working for them, or a director or VP or higher. And it's rooted in ownership and accountability. They both are, really, but it's a matter of just making things happen instead of blaming people and all kinds of stuff. And I could share the entire outline with anybody who wants to know, but go to victoryleadershipcoaching.com. You can check that stuff out. I also do speaking engagements. If anybody needs that, somebody to get up, stand at a podium and talk about ownership and accountability at a conference, and if you think that's beneficial, that's probably my favorite thing.
So whenever I look at a company, right, I can always recognize great leadership by one statistic, and that's the retention rate.
Yes.
Because I'll tell you what, one of the quickest way for you to lose good employees is be a shitty leader.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of great companies lose some amazing human beings due to the fact that they decided to put a shitty leader in front of the company, and not every great worker is a great leader. Right. And not every great leader is a great worker either way. I mean, I feel that you have to understand at a level of what the workers go through to be a good leader as well, to kind of, cross paths there. But, I think that leadership is something that a lot of people don't just, have in them. And sometimes it's something they got to learn and take on courses, whatever it may be. But I will tell you, the product is always based on the happiness of your employees. Right. Yep. And so the happier your employees are, the better your product typically is, and the more efficiency you get out of your workers. How important is it to have good leaders in the workplace?
It's 100%. So I believe that most people, if they want the position to have a different level of responsibility and have people working for them under their charge is probably a better way of saying it. If that's something that they want, then leadership can be taught. But if you don't want it, if they're promoting you and just because you were a great employee, they think that you're just going to be the best manager or supervisor or director or whatever you get thrown into. Well, likely it's going to cause more problems than it does benefit your organization, because there's got to be heart in it. And if you didn't actually want it, you were just thrown into it, your heart's not going to be in it. But also, if you're unprepared and you're thrown into it, even if you wanted it, it's going to be overwhelming. So the tools that are it's being a manager is another job. So you got to treat it like another job. Every job that you get, you have to be trained for it. There's a different level of complexity to learn how to be able to lead and influence other people than there is to getting behind the forklift and driving. So teach people those complexities so that they can go out there and win.
So did your experience, my brain goes into that idea of you were a warrant officer, right?
Yeah.
So for those of you who are listening who may not understand, you've got the lower enlisted, you've got the non-commissioned officers, which is like the sergeants and sergeant majors and stuff like that. And then you have the officers, captains, lieutenants, majors, generals, stuff like that. But then you have this like weird in the middle, and not all branches have
Unicorns,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. Not
in the middle.
not all branches have this. Okay. There's the
In the
warrant
Marine Corps, we
officers.
do too. Yeah.
Yeah. And the warrant officers, they aren't enlisted, and they're not officers. They kind of fall into this unique rainbow, unicorn area
Well,
where they kind
are
of
officers.
they kind of do their own
Rainbow.
little
You got to
they
salute
kind of
them
do
and everything. Yes.
they kind of do their own little thing. But with that, you guys get very specialized training because you guys become professionals in your
subject matter experts.
in your subject matter. You guys become the professional. And so as you have probably done a lot of different sort of leadership training in the military, how did that specialized training influence what you were doing with the leadership training in the civilian world?
Well, so I went all the way from E1 to E7 as an enlisted person. And so I did all of the NCO stuff minus being a first sergeant, which I was a detachment NCO. So that was similar, but still not the same. And I never got to be a sergeant major. My goal actually was to become a sergeant major, but that there are two separate categories of warrant officer. You can be a pilot straight off the jump. You can do that. But most other all of the other warrant officer jobs, if I'm not mistaken, they could have other opportunities now, but they did not when I became a warrant officer to just join the military and become a warrant officer right off the jump. It just doesn't work that way unless you want to be a pilot. So all warrant officers have to have a certain level of experience in their field in order to, we call it wearing the dot. Warrant officer ranks are just a little bit different. It's just 1 dot, 2 dots, 3 dots, 4 dots, or 5 dots, and it's all vertical. And that's what the grades are. There are only 5 of them. And I qualified for that because I had at least 60 college credits. And, I also went and I did the work. I had been all kinds of places and done all kinds of things, and they deemed once I put my packet in there that I did enough, and they taught me the rest. But as far as preparing me for what I'm doing now, I learned how to deal with people as an NCO. I really, truly believe that from the bottom of my heart. Being that sergeant through sergeant first class it taught me a lot on how to lead and influence people, because people they will still work when you tell them to do stuff, but it's not going to be the same level of commitment than if you learn how to influence them and treat them like real people, because when you get promoted, you're just part of it. You're just a different part of the team.
You're dealing with different personalities, different walks of life. I mean, it's trying to find that common ground too as a leader, to where, you bring all those worlds together and make it operate smooth.
True. But it's more than that. It's treating people like people and allowing and helping them understand that though you may be at the top of that team and you have to report all the stuff that goes on with that team, you're still just a part of the team. That's why that whole saying lead by example is so important, because when people are you want to give people the room to make mistakes, But when they're struggling to a certain point, you got to get down on the ground and get your hands dirty and help them out yourself. It lets them know that you still know how to do the work, one, but two, it lets them know that you're not just going to let them squirm and kick around on the ground and fail. So it's just learning what that role actually means. And when I became a warrant officer, it was no different. I dealt with E6 and above, and then, which is staff sergeant or sergeant first class, or I dealt with lieutenants, mostly lieutenants as a unit movement officer. They had the additional duty to coordinate the movement of all the equipment. And so that's who I dealt with, because I was the single point of contact for the brigade. And since basically I was the equivalent of like a program manager for the commander, I didn't have any of these people working for me. I was helping them get their job done. And so I had to teach them how to create that level of influence to go back to their organization and make the stuff that needed to get done to prepare them for deployment, how to make that stuff happen. Because how many lieutenant colonels do you know that actually pay much attention to what their lieutenant says? I'm just saying. So, I mean, that you have to teach them how to create those conversations and how to create that influence. And that brought a different level of complexity, because I was dealing with people higher up on the food chain. And I did that a little bit. You know, when you're a sergeant first class, you have those lieutenants that basically worship you because you have the experience they don't, and you save their ass on a regular basis. But when I became a warrant officer, that was primarily who I dealt with. And so I had to nurture these kids like they were my own and make sure they didn't screw it up, because then that did come back on me. Even though they didn't work for me, it still came back on me. And how did that prepare me for now? Well, it gives me a firm understanding on how to navigate people, how to understand them, how to get to know them, understand their strengths and weaknesses, and be able to influence them to do things without making them feel like a total dirtbag or that you're pushing things on them.
So is this kind of how you came up with the book and the podcast name, the Stand Up, Show Up, Lead?
Speak Up, Show Up, Lead.
Sorry, Speak Up, Show Up, Lead.
So actually this book was therapy for me. I was having a lot of struggles in life and in my business around the time my mom passed, which was a couple years ago. And so I sat down and I started writing. Oh, there you go. It's that one right there. And so I started writing, and that's Speak Up, Show Up, Lead. The book is actually my leadership lessons learned throughout my life. And it's very, very vague. And I didn't have the strength within me to go into all the exact details of all of those things that happened in my life. But I did give enough detail to let people know that no matter what place you are in your life, you have the ability to take charge of it and get out of it. And if I can do it, good Lord, anybody can do it. Because I went from sleeping in my truck to joining the military and now having a business of my own and a podcast. And I've written some books, and you know, I'm no one special. If you look at the book, I have a lot of terrible experiences, just like a lot of people do. But you can rise above anything.
Oh, you're special, JJ.
Yeah, I was gonna say
You're
you
special, bro.
you took all of these lessons that you learned, and now you share them with the next person. And I think that is beautiful. Like you are teaching the next generation of leaders. You are, you're also, giving voice to other people with your podcast, and your whole thing is like being there for the next person. You are a great example of healing out loud, PTSD to advocacy. You are helping out so many people, and that is special, dude. Like don't talk down to yourself like that, right? You are special. Your story and your journey is unique. And like, who was it? One of you two said, we each have our individual tools that we can utilize for individuals. Your story is going to hit somebody that my story can't hit, and the way that you lead, the way that you explain things, the way that you're guiding things is going to influence somebody that I could never influence. And I think that is special. That is beautiful.
Yeah, you
and
just
I
used one
love
of
it.
our words that we don't allow on this is
Yeah.
yeah, you just used one of those words that you're not allowed to use,
Which
I'm a
one was that?
nobody, my story doesn't matter, any of those kind of that
Well,
I'm
right
not
here we'll just,
special.
yeah,
You
we
are
just we will
special.
bleep the shit out of that,
So please don't, because what I want people to understand is it doesn't matter what background you come from.
Right.
It's what you take yourself to. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that I'm a nobody. I'm not saying that. I'm
No,
saying
right,
that
no.
I'm saying that my background is probably very similar to somebody else who hasn't had the ability to rise above that. So knowing that I can take myself, or people like me can take themselves from struggle to thriving, that
So,
absolutely means that you can too.
so the better word is you're
Love
not
it.
unique. Not that you aren't special, because you are special.
Oh, I am
But
very
you-
special.
But but you're not unique. It's it's that idea that like anybody can find a way to overcome their trauma to move forward. Okay.
Yes.
I like that better. That is a better way to say it. We are getting close on time, but I wanted to give you a minute to just kind of talk about your podcast a little bit, and what your goals are with your podcast, and then also social media. How can people find you? This has been an amazing interview, and I wish that we had
You need
about
a link
50
tree.
billion hours.
I do have one.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
As a matter of fact-
So
as a matter
talk
of fact-
about your podcast and how people can get a hold of you, and maybe one day we'll have you on again, because I would love to continue our conversation.
Sure. So my podcast is also called Speak Up, Show Up, Lead. Once I published my book, I rebranded my podcast because I believe that, just like my story, it's important for other people to share their leadership experiences to make the next generation better, or anybody who's having a hard time better. And I bring on people and we talk about a specific leadership topic, and I allow them to share their experiences that are associated with what makes that special to them. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. As far as getting a hold of me, I do have a link tree. It's victoryleadershipcoaching.com/links. Can't be more simple than that.
And all your social media is under the Victory Leadership, correct?
All the social media. It's either JJ Hardy or Jeremiah Hardy on LinkedIn, or it's Victory Leadership, depending on where you're at. I couldn't put JJ Hardy on TikTok, so I had to put Victory_leadership. They wouldn't. Somebody else apparently was already JJ Hardy.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and show everybody. I was able to find it, so I'll add it real quick. Oh, that's not that. All right, stop screen. 1 second. So I'm gonna bring up his link tree. Bada bing. There's the link tree, and this is I love Linktree. It's free for anybody to use. If you have multiple places to go have your links, and I'm not getting any kind of credit for this, but I think Linktree is awesome. So it's one-stop shop if you want to go check out any of his books. Book a call to meet JJ, all that stuff. It's all right here in Linktree, and that's the best place you can go. How I was able to put it in there, I just put the Victory Leadership Linktree, and then boom, I was able to find them.
So I do have a Linktree one as well, but I also have the one that's directly linked to my website, and they look very similar. So whether you go to my Linktree one, or you go to the one that starts off with Victory Leadership Coaching, either one, all the links will take you to the same places.
So what is your actual website?
It's victoryleadershipcoaching.com.
There we go. Okay.
And you can watch my speaking engagements. You can watch all the stuff from that website.
And people can just as a refresher, you're located in Ohio.
Oh my goodness.
I-
Amana,
Iowa?
Iowa.
Iowa. Okay. So
Just
so
remember,
you're located
idiots
in
out wandering
Iowa.
around.
You're located in Iowa. However, a lot of your stuff that you do is all online. So people
A
can
lot of it's
access
virtual.
it from anywhere.
Please
Okay.
hire
And
me to do something in person. I can't stand staring at my desk all the time.
So you're on pretty much all the platforms, all the audio platforms, YouTube as well.
Yep. And as a
Perfect.
matter of fact, the Spotify link is on there as well. That's where most of the people watch my show. It's starting to pick up on Apple Podcast, but yeah, it's all on there.
Outstanding. And make sure you guys rate his show. It's always helps to have your show rated. But JJ, man, we appreciate you, bro. You were very open, and I love the dialogue that we were able to have. I definitely would love to have you on every day Saturday, and we can dive a little bit more into your 18 years of service. There's a lot of shit to sift through there for sure. But dude, you're amazing for our community, bro. I really appreciate your service to the country and your service to what you're doing for our country today and for our brothers and sisters, man. You know, I know that sometimes when we're out there doing this kind of stuff, we have podcast shows or whatever. We never know who's listening. We could look at, data all we want, but you never know, bro, who's out there listening and showing up every day, and like they need to hear JJ, So we appreciate you, bro. I really do, and I hope nothing but the most success for you. I hope you're up there with the Joe Rogans and the Sean Ryans. That's the goal is to get all these podcasts out there so we can get our stories and and show people, man. There's a life that you can turn your shit into success, right? You can take that pile of shit and make it into gold. It's not in America. It's not unfathomable to do here.
And by the way, I have seen on I can't remember if it was Mythbusters or what it was, but you can actually polish a turd. So don't think that you can't.
Yes. I've been using that term a lot lately for some reason. So that's great.
Horrible. That's
horrible. Oh,
come on. There's the female. That's sick. You guys.
You guys are terrible. Shut up.
JJ, thank you so much for being on here. This has been wonderful and just a good example of, overcoming adversity and becoming a leader and training others and moving forward. Thank you so much for being here. This has been wonderful.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. All right, friends and fam. That was another amazing episode. And I just love getting to do this kind of stuff, right? And this is my therapy, and this is the way I feel like I get to heal is talking to my fellow brothers and sisters. So with that being said, the show is totally open to anybody and everybody. We would love for you to come on. You have the opportunity to tell your story in person, or if you want to write us, email us something and we can tell your story, but your story does matter. I can't emphasize that enough. Your story does matter. And like we said here earlier, and you keep hearing us say these toolboxes, you never know what's in your tools that someone else could be missing. Right. And so let's be the light in darkness. Let's give the tools for the people that don't have them. You have anything you want to say before we head out?
I'm just glad to be here. Thank you guys for continuing to support us. This is going to be fun to kind of see where the show goes. We are booked out completely until about February, but we are, kind of starting to incorporate a couple live episodes. Keep an eye out. By the time this airs, we've already done one live, and hopefully we'll do another by the time this one airs. But we are currently working on emergency preparedness in some lives, and one of the classes is going to be very special. It's going to be talking about how to maintain mental health skills while you're actively being traumatized in a crisis situation, which is going to be fantastic. And so we're going to be talking about that resiliency through emergency preparedness. And so we've got some really awesome classes coming up on that. And then just some other ideas of lives that will be coming up at some point. But if you are interested in coming on the show, sign up at sliderbabe.com and we'll try to get you into cancellations if we do have some, you know, or it'll move on for next year, which will be awesome. But come listen to all the episodes and check out sliderbabe.com to listen to the episodes. If you just want to do a networking call with me, if you're seeking resources, if you've been watching the show and a resource pops out and you're like, yeah, you know, I want to get more information, you can schedule a networking call with me and I'll kind of help you get connected. If you just need someone to talk to, reach out. And then of course, go check out Bryan's, you know, podcast, Every Day's a Saturday, USMC veteran. And just thank you guys for being here.
Yep. And you know how we say, don't let the day kick your ass, but make sure you're out there kicking it. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.